watching the vanishing of David Lewis. Get your popcorn, get your drinks, meet your meat, so we can watch this video unhorned. Let's go, guys. Gotta unmute it first. No TTS during the video, you buffoons. Don't fucking do it. Don't even think about it. Don't even fucking think about it. I hate you. You slut. You little bitch. I hate you. Stop. Stop.
On January 31st, 1993, the wife and daughter of a Texas man named David Lewis would return home to discover him nowhere to be found. Soon after and across the country, an unidentified man would be spotted walking down the side of a highway.
The audio good for y'all?
In a hit and run. It would take over 11 years for these stories to converge.
You fucking idiot, you're ruining everything. I'm gonna fucking ban you,
was
okay?
Certain and abnormal, but shine light into the possibility that David Glenn Lewis just might
I'm gonna fucking slap your ass. Grip it. Tear your shorts off. Stop, bro. Where's David? Where's David? Hey now what, nigga? Hey what? Shut up. Jesus, what is this? What am I looking at?
It was 1993.
This looked like a bag of crumbs.
Exact.
The fuck?
With preparations in place in a lively Dallas, Texas, waiting an influx of sports fans, festivities were abundant for one of the largest sports events of the year. On the 28th of January, David's wife and daughter, Karen and Lauren, embarked on a 400-mile trip from their home in Amarillo to Dallas.
400 to see a game? Oh, shopping.
The reason why David stayed behind is
400 miles is
unclear. Some have stated that he wanted to record the game to a VHS, and since their VCR lacked a function to begin a recording at a set date, he had to be there in person to start it. Others, like his wife, have made tangential statements alluding to the possibility that he had to work, since he was a lawyer. From the span of January 28th to the 31st, what took place back at the Lewis home is unclear. By January 31st, though, Karen's testimony aided investigators in piecing together those missing events. That evening, the game was scheduled to begin at 5:30 p.m. Central. A few hours after this, around 11:15 p.m., Karen and Lauren would arrive back at the home to discover David nowhere to be found. His car was missing. There was clean laundry in the dryer.
Damn.
His wedding ring and watch were intact on the counter.
And that nigga did what the memes be talking
sandwiches
about.
In the fridge. And the VCR had recorded even after the match was over. At first glance, the circumstances here wouldn't exactly raise red flags, since there appeared to be no evidence of foul play.
How small is this house?
Karen assumed that he'd nearly been
Why the fuck is the washer in the kitchen? What is this house layout?
Working late or watching the game somewhere, and would return soon. David Glenn Lewis never returned home again.
Damn.
One day later, his wife would officially report him missing.
At least you didn't wait 30 days like a bitch who killed her kid and ran away. She acted like her kid was missing. Reported it 30 days later.
At around 10:30 p.m. on the night of February 1st, a motorist on State Route 24 in Yakima, Washington, encountered what they believed to be a man walking on the side of the road. Since it was so late, his actions were cause for concern, since it wasn't exactly common to find people hitchhiking in the dead of night.
Yes, that psychopath bitch.
They believed that the man was dressed in military-style clothing and work boots. Following this odd encounter, they found a safe spot to make a U-turn so they could loop back around and check up on him.
I know because of JCS.
When they finally managed to get back, they discovered his body, but it was lifeless on the side of the road.
Jesus.
A Chevy Camaro was also allegedly spotted fleeing the scene when they approached him. However, attempts at catching the plate information were unsuccessful. After this discovery, they rushed to file a report, and police arrived on the scene shortly after. Investigations into the body found that there were no drugs or alcohol in his system, and there was unfortunately no form of identification. leaving him stuck as an unidentified John Doe. The Camaro that was spotted was one of the only working leads, and since the shoulders on State Route 24 weren't exactly pronounced, the hit and run that took place was eventually deemed accidental, leaving the case to remain stagnant.
What does it got to do with David? Is that him? Amarillo.
Conversely, back in Amarillo, the investigation into David Lewis was just ramping up. The very next day, his red Ford SUV was spotted outside of the Potter County Courts building, a mere 10 miles from the local airport.
Fuck you doing at the courthouse?
Inside the glove box, investigators were able to find his credit cards, driver's license, and checkbook in spots that Karen claims he usually keeps them. Soon after this discovery, Karen Lewis expressed even greater concern since it was incredibly out of the ordinary for him to just up and vanish without any of his possessions or identification.
But that seemed like something you do when you
It began to seem that there was a piece to the puzzle that investigators were missing.
It doesn't make
Something
sense.
that had potentially placed David in the crosshairs of an adversary.
Nothing, no sign of nothing.
In one
What
of
did
her
that hit and run
testimonies,
have to do?
Karen claimed that a few weeks prior to his disappearance, her husband told her that he believed that he was in danger, but wouldn't provide any information as to what the immediate threat was. This eventually led David's family to express the belief that it could have been linked to his work as an attorney. He had allegedly been wrapped up in a high-stakes lawsuit against his former law firm, Ham, Irwin, Graham & Cox, with the wealthy client suing them for conflict of interest.
I wouldn't
A
know.
week after he went missing, David was scheduled to fly to Dallas for a deposition, determined to reveal the firm's misdeeds no matter the cost. It was noted by his father that shortly before he vanished, he claimed that he was, quote, going to tell the truth, whoever it hurts.
Bro,
These leads,
I would never be surprised.
unfortunately, also materialized nothing.
The fuck happened? You just didn't fuck with his family no more? Let these niggas fatherless?
A few months
Like
later,
slugs and
a
shit?
discovery was made involving David Lewis and plane tickets that he'd purchased the weekend he went missing. 2 of them. One from Dallas to Amarillo, Texas, purchased on January 31st, and a second from Los Angeles to Dallas, purchased on the 1st of February. This effectively places Lewis at the DFW airport on the 31st and at LAX the very next day. It's widely believed that he had pre-purchased his return flights while at each location, although the actual flight dates and if he used the tickets are unclear. This leaves us with 3 lingering questions though. Where was David Lewis going? How did he get to where he was without any sort of trail? And why did he purchase return tickets back home?
My fault.
To answer the second question, we have to consider the time period that his flights were purchased. Since it predates the 9/11 tragedy, airline rules in the US were much more lax than they are today. Back then,
niggas can
one
get
could
on there with
purchase a
an
ticket
AR-15
using a
in they
completely
bag.
different name since a valid ID wasn't required to
Some
board the
coke in
flight.
their pants.
Of course, this is far from how things are today, so this doesn't work anymore.
They
But
got a
most are
dime
set
bag
on
in
the
his
belief
socks.
that this is what Lewis had done on his flights out of town. Regarding the why, well, that's still unclear. Some have postulated that he was trying to get away from that aforementioned threat, covering up his tracks along the way.
Harmless. Jesus.
It's believed that, for him, it wasn't as imperative to fly under the radar, so to speak.
All my
while
parents,
returning
people
home.
out there, I love
But
you,
that is,
but I will bring
if
it
he
up.
ever planned to.
I will bring it up to talk shit to you, whether I know about it or not. It's all love. Just call me a monkey or some shit. Call me a slur. You can. It's cool. In GTA.
By June of that year, leads remained sparse as circumstantial details trickled in. It seemed like piecing together what and where David
GTA, of
Lewis did and
course, in
went
GTA.
was paramount to
What
harvesting
else?
any sort of answer on his current whereabouts and
And
motivations.
what else? Real
A Del
life?
Rio,
Oh my
Texas
god.
news
You're
publisher with the
insane.
name of the Del Rio News Herald published an allocated timeline up to that point in the investigation. And while it doesn't exactly provide any definitives, it does exemplify the fact that Lewis's weekend was far from ordinary. According to the write-up, starting on Thursday, January 28th, Lewis had left his workplace at noon, claiming he was sick. The next day, a friend spotted him rushing through the Southwest Airlines terminal at the local airport with no luggage. On Saturday, $5,000 was deposited into Lewis's bank account, with a neighbor spotting his red SUV at home. By Sunday morning, he was spotted at the court building, taking a photo of his car in the parking lot.
The fuck?
And by Monday morning, a Dallas cab driver drove a man matching the description of Lewis from a hotel to the Dallas airport. The driver claims that, quote, the passenger seemed nervous and fumbled through a wad of $100 bills to pay the fare. Now, if we assume that all of these claims are accurate,
What is
then
happening?
they hint
This
at the
nigga running from the
possibility
mob?
of Lewis paying for his plane tickets with cash to
RP
further avoid
stream?
being tracked.
Yeah, I don't know.
Considering the fact that he left all of his personal possessions, including his credit card and ID at home, this, of course, makes sense.
Niggas
What
don't
stands
RP.
out here,
They just
however,
wanna be
is
gang
the $5,000 that was placed into his account. Unless he was allocating a substantial chunk of that for some other obligation, I don't think a few taxi rides and plane trips would come anywhere close to reaching that monetary milestone. The only explanation that could account for a sum of this magnitude would be some sort of direct deposit from his employer being wired into his account. Considering the fact that he was a longtime lawyer, it wouldn't be far-fetched to assume that this would be the reason. But if that were the case, why would it, at all, be notable? If this were his typical pay, then it would be simple to discount it as just that. Work compensation. Just food for thought. Jumping to his Dallas, Texas encounter on February 1st, I'd like to highlight something. If he were taking a taxi from a hotel to the Dallas airport, then we have to assume that he spent the night in Dallas after arriving there the previous day. Thinking back on the chain of events, though, presents a unique inconsistency. Looking back, we can recall that Lewis allegedly wanted to record the Super Bowl, and there were freshly made sandwiches in the fridge. If David were to have been spotted that morning taking a picture of his vehicle at the court building, then his only method of getting back home would have been taking a taxi or getting someone to pick him up.
True.
For someone with so many extraordinary variables surrounding his disappearance, something as simple as wanting to record a football game is
That's
immensely
weird.
unexceptional.
It's weird.
The typical long play VHS tape records approximately 4 hours of footage, and the average
Let me
football
record
game
this
is
game,
around 3 hours and
but I'm
5
still
minutes
gonna
long.
leave fucking Vanish.
If we're
Like, what is
assuming that
happening?
the VCR didn't have any sort of auto record feature, then it makes the events surrounding this that much more puzzling. Why go through the effort of dropping your car off that
And
morning
making a
only to
sandwich?
make it back home, going about your day, and even making sandwiches like everything's alright? Why up and vanish after
that doesn't make
5:30,
sense.
leaving behind everything you have? This is, of course, assuming that the VCR did not have an auto record function. Unfortunately,
Didn't you say you didn't?
confirmation for and against this minute detail have never been released. And because of that, it's unclear whether he left that morning when he was spotted, or later that night. That sentiment largely encompassed the Lewis
They
case
came home, made
investigators.
lunch,
It
recorded
seemed
the
that the
game.
pieces were falling in line. However, substantial
vanished.
answers and leads to the body were mostly non-existent. Because of this, and after 11 months, the search unfortunately concluded, leaving this case to sit untouched
Still?
until anything further came of it.
K-Club. Then they caught that nigga at a Benihana's with a bitch. 3 kids.
It would take over 10 years before the events that took place in Yakima
10
and Amarillo
years,
would
bro. This
converge.
kid is an adult now.
In 2004, a Washington state detective named Peter Ditter was reading a series by the name of Without a Trace. After becoming fascinated with the topic of missing persons, he embarked on a personal journey to identify any that he could. After looking into a few and their characteristics, he eventually stumbled upon coverage of the situation that played out that night in Washington. He cross-checked the photo from the crime scene with various contenders and realized that the person looked incredibly similar to
I got
David
3
Glenn
baby
Lewis
mamas and all their
in
names are
Amarillo.
Candy.
The only catch was that Lewis was known to have worn glasses.
That nigga actually
while the
talking about
unidentified
Candy.
body wasn't wearing any when he was found.
That nigga come
Upon
on
further
Twix bars.
investigation
He
into
stick
the characteristics
Twixes
and items that were found on John
Snickers,
Doe's body, however,
and 3
a
Musketeers
pair
in
of
his
glasses
ass.
were among them, effectively sealing the deal that this man was,
You a wild bull.
in fact, David Glenn Lewis.
What?
What the hell are you talking about?
But of course, this
You know what I'm
discovery would
talking
only
about.
raise more questions than answers.
Didn't you show it to me?
What obligations would David Lewis have
playing. He
in
ain't showed me.
Yakima, Washington, of all places?
But he do
Why
do
was he
that.
spotted in military-styled clothing and work boots, attire that Karens come forward to claim are extremely unusual for him? If he
This
had
nigga
all
go
this cash,
manic? What
why couldn't he
happened?
grab a rental car or a taxi? We can't claim that he had drugs or alcohol in his system since those tests came back negative. So why exactly was he spotted walking down the side of a Washington highway at 10:30 at night? Well, that's where everyone's stuck.
Wait, it
Some have
doesn't make
postulated
sense.
that it could have been tied to the case he was working on against his
What?
former
What do you
employer.
mean what?
And others have settled
What do
on
you
the
mean what?
possibility that it could have been linked to a mental breakdown.
Ain't no what?
If you ask me,
Ain't no what? Nothing
I
but a
believe it
Twix
was
in your
tied
butt,
to sudden
nigga. Shut
paranoia
up.
brought upon himself through that threat he alluded to with his wife. What that threat is could be tied to his work, or could be something completely out of the picture. Considering the fact that he ended up in Yakima, Washington, of all places, lends to the potential that he might have been more secretive than he made out to be.
I
But
love the snap.
that's
I
the
ain't never
thing.
experienced it, but
That's
once
merely
in the
speculation.
mountains.
Something that this investigation is no stranger to.
Taco Bell.
And that's
Shit.
where we sit. The inconsistencies and questions surrounding his disappearance
They just
are some that have
creative.
gone unanswered for decades, leaving investigators scratching their heads. Unfortunately, it just might stay that way, because the only person who truly knows what played out that bizarre weekend is David Glenn Lewis, who left his entire life behind
So,
with hardly a lead to follow.
was the dude who got hit in a hit and run him or not? Ain't there snow in Montana? Yes, there's snow in Montana. I don't go outside. I ain't never like interact with the snow since that one time. Bro, was that him who got hit by the car on the freeway or not? I'm confused. I was just talking to him too much, but like, did he get hit? Was that him or is he still missing? This video is ass. Nigga, you linked it. How you gonna call the video Nexpo? This is a great video, Nexpo. Don't let others say anything like that ever. Great video, great content. He loves your videos. I got more questions than before the video. Oh God, like what the fuck? Man, who do you think he is? A detective? No, he's making a YouTube vid, boy. Damn, all these people helped him make this. Nexpo. I gotta shit, bro. I gotta take a shit. Great video, Nexpo. Nice beard. I wish I could have a beard like that. He looked like David Blaine. I fuck with you. Great video. Make sure you like his video. Mwah, 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 mwah.